Hey guys, how you doing today? Day 1,003,000 of the COVID-19 crisis. As expected, right? I've been expecting it for a while now. Um, the death cultists, the capitalist death cult, they're not going to be satisfied with creating a system that doesn't sell us into wage slavery under the billionaire class, right? We know that's true. Now is a wonderful opportunity for us to flip the bird at these capitalists and say, oh, wait a minute, we can build a system without you, or at least a system in which you have to actually participate equitably. And so I've been waiting for people to sort of reveal themselves. And because as the crisis was unfolding, most people were kind of going along with the necessary situation and really focusing on what had to be done. But as it's going forward, right, more and more people are coming out and revealing themselves as against workers, against ordinary people, and in fact, part of a capitalist death cult that exists exclusively to sacrifice you to the whims of billionaires. John Ivison just recently wrote a piece in the National Post, and I'm literally going to go through it right now and shit on capitalist death cultist John Ivison, this pathetic, worthless person who does no work, who is a loser, and should actually be expunged from our society. Let's walk through this absolutely disgusting piece of hate speech, in my view. You don't say the shit that you say in this article and have people just kind of walk away from it going like, oh, okay, I guess, that's a normal, obvious opinion, right? Like, John Ivison is a disgusting individual. So, title, John Ivison's Trudeau's lavish handouts risk turning workers into welfare slackers. We're in the middle of a pandemic, you piece of living garbage. They aren't lavish handouts. They are a return on us selling ourselves to a billionaire-dominated market. I know you don't actually pretend like the billionaires exist. I know you work for them exclusively, John Ivison. I know you don't care about ordinary citizens and their livelihoods. And I know you have no shame or the ability to feel shame. So this is going to be almost an exercise in futility, because a person like you is not capable of reform or learning. So I am just doing it to preach to the choir. So here's the article. The first rule of opposition politics is to draw contrasts with the government in the most extreme manner possible. You're a political hack if that's the way you think. Drawing contrasts with the government in the most extreme manner possible is how you become a lunatic and a racist and a bigot, because obviously you're a bigot. I mean, clearly you think working people are worthless and should exclusively sacrifice themselves to a death cult. So already from the first line, you reveal yourself as a political hack that doesn't actually understand what they're writing about in the first place. Pierre Poilievre is so wed to the game plan, he adhered it even when he was a minister. On Sunday, the conservative finance critic accused the Liberals of engaging in a gigantic experiment in Freakonomics, the study of incentives to figure out behavior. The irony here, of course, is that Freakonomics refers to the failed policies of neoliberalism, sort of the stealing of language in order to... Freakonomics is a book, I forget who wrote it, and it goes through pretty clearly how neoliberalism... economics is a total failure. The idea of handing all the money over to billionaires and then that wealth will trickle into the society is not only a fraud, it's a complete lie. One that John Ivison seems completely incapable of understanding the distinction of. He said the government's emergency benefits package is having the opposite effect to its intended effect, acting not as a stimulus to economic activity but as a tranquilizer, by punishing people for working. We're in the middle of a pandemic. You're an idiot. There's no other further commentary to make. If this is the position that you're taking in the middle of a pandemic, you're not only a moron, you're a death cultist. You want to sacrifice people to empower billionaires. It really is that simple. You should be ashamed of yourselves. I know you don't feel shame, but you should be ashamed of yourselves. Polier may have been embroidered here and embellished there, but he's not wrong. So John Ivison agreeing death cultist is the way to go. A new report by a working group of some of Canada's best economic thinkers at the C.D. Howe Institute reveal a similar, if more soberly expressed, disquiet with the way the government... Let's be very clear. The C.D. Howe Institute is a brain trust for neoliberals and conservatives. Their position literally is selling people to a billionaire-dominated market is good. That's their position. That every Canadian should sell themselves to billionaires, get less benefits, get less time, get less wages, so that billionaires can get extra money, because we lie to the populace and say that those billionaires will then reinvest in the society. They don't. It's a complete fraud, it's a complete lie, and John Ivison is happy propping up that fraud and that lie. A working group co-chaired by Michael Horgan, a former deputy minister of the Department of Finance, a neoliberal deputy, let's be very clear. So when they say Freakonomics, what they're talking about is themselves. They're talking about their failed policies. They're talking about their own insipid desire to enslave people to a system that will abandon them. Very clearly. John Ivison, of course, is either illiterate on this point, which I think is probably correct, or he understands that and is happy sacrificing people. I'm just going to skip a whole bunch. Niche populations currently not covered by CERB should be addressed by temporary provincial programs, it said. Yeah, so that they can take them away and sell people back into slavery, right? The reason is that the launch of the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy Program on Monday creates the conditions for moral hazard. You see how they're framing this, right? That economics... See, they're economists, but they have moral positions, right? So that shows you very clearly that they're death cultists, right? Their position is ideologically driven. They're not interested in creating a mathematical system that works based on evidence or numbers or facts. They want to be priests, right? Creates the conditions for moral hazard. That's what they're talking about. They're ideologically driven exclusively. Where parties predicted from risk will act differently than they might otherwise have done if they were not protected, right? This is an article that's arguing to not protect people. Specifically, there is a worry that some workers might prefer to sit on their duffs for the next 3 months, pocketing $2,000 a month rather than going back to work when called by their employers. So if the death cultists call you, you're supposed to snap to, right? Hey, why aren't you coming and making my sandwiches? Hey, how come you're not coming and making my food for me? Hey, come on. I got real work to do, like write pathetic articles in loser magazines telling workers that they're pointless unless they gotta snap too. They gotta snap too. And of course, there's absolutely no evidence whatsoever to suggest that people sit on their duffs, right? They engage in labor that is not directly beneficial to the billionaire class and therefore isn't counted as work. A working group report suggested that there's already anecdotal evidence that some people in CERB have refused. So no evidence, just some assholes basically just saying, I think that's the case. Yeah, obviously billionaires think that way because they're sociopaths who don't care about the society. They're going to frame this in the worst possible way. They're going to frame this in a manner that excludes as many people from getting benefits as they possibly can because they don't care if you die. They don't care, right? If they could, they would kill you for a penny, right? Like if somebody said, hey, I'll give you a penny, you got to just murder that guy, they'd do it, absolutely. And if you think otherwise, you're fooling yourself. John Ivison's writing an article here that just proves that point. Oh, a similar disincentive to working exists for... See, now they've framed it, right? A similar disincentive to working. And every time a capitalist death cultist says this, a similar disincentive to working, you need to tack on 4 billionaires, right? Onto it. Because the only economic activity that matters to the capitalist death cult is labor for billionaires. They don't care about labor for other people in the society. They don't care about volunteer work. They don't care about any of that kind of stuff. They don't care if you help the people around you. If it doesn't directly impact the bank account of billionaires, then it doesn't count as labor. I'm just going to skip this because it's just nonsense. The CD Howe is literally just a billionaire brain trust. I don't understand why we should bother accepting what they say, except to hear what the billionaire sociopaths are saying. The government needs to look at the time after the period of crisis, says someone from this institute. Yeah, because they want to strip these benefits. That's the whole argument. The working group professed itself surprised at the sheer number of applicants for CERB. 6.73 million Canadians, or more than 35% of the labor force. We're in the middle of a fucking pandemic, you sociopathic death cultists. One reason, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Yet there's no to be available. Yeah, because we're in the middle of a pandemic, morons. We're in the middle of a pandemic. The word pandemic is not in this article. Like, oh, here we go, finally. As the group suggests, the government could mandate that CERB recipients accept an offer to return to work as long as the pay and conditions are not worse than they were pre-COVID. Right? Anything to sell people back to the capitalist death cult. Anything to sell people back to the capitalist death cult. Yeah, constant overflow. It just goes on like this, right? Let's just read his closing article. Even if it's not yet clear to the Prime Minister, says John Ivison, sociopathic death cultist, pressures are growing on the Liberal government to take action to ensure its generous safety net for worker does not become a summer hammock. Fuck you, John Ivison. You fucking loser. You don't work. You do nothing. You sit on your ass writing this kind of trash, and the rest of us are doing your work for you. Right? We support you. It's not the other way around. You're a worthless person that doesn't actually contribute anything. This is what you're doing. You're basically telling workers, hey, go fuck yourself. Get back to work for the capitalist death cult. There's billionaires that need to get more numbers in their bank account, don't you know? Go fuck yourself. It really is that simple. I hope I never meet you. Actually, I should rephrase that. You hope you never meet me. Because what I'm saying right here, imagine this, but 10 times more. Because it's going to be in your face, and it's going to be up your ass. Fuck you, John Ivison. You're a capitalist death cultist.